This is the Ramana Maharshi satsang, a time to listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke. I'm not a guru or a teacher. I just love this teaching and so want to share it. I'm reviewing and commenting on the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Today is Talk 174. Ramana Maharshi speaking with Dr. Hand. Maharshi, there is nothing external in consciousness. Dr. Hand, is there not the individuality? I fear to lose my individual being. Is there not in consciousness the consciousness of being human? Maharshi, why fear to lose individuality? What is your state in dreamless sleep? Are you conscious of your individuality then? Dr. Hand, it is possible. Maharshi, but what is your experience? If individuality be there, would it be deep sleep? Dr. Hand, that depends on the interpretation. What does Maharshi say? Maharshi cannot speak of your experience. He does not force anything down your throat. Dr. Hand, I know. That's why I like him and his teaching so much. Maharshi, do you not really prepare your bed? And are you not anxious to lose your individuality in deep sleep? Why fear it? Dr. Hand, what is the nirvana of Buddha? Maharshi, loss of individuality. Dr. Hand, I dread that loss. Can there not be human consciousness in nirvana? Maharshi, are there two selves in that case? Consider your present experience of sleep and say, in this dialogue between Ramana Maharshi and Dr. Hand, they engage in an exploration of consciousness and the fear of losing individuality. Ramana begins by asserting that there is nothing external to consciousness, emphasizing its all-encompassing nature. Dr. Hand, grappling with the concept, questions whether individuality exists within consciousness, expressing a fear of losing his distinct identity. He wonders if consciousness inherently carries the awareness of being human. Maharshi challenges this fear, pointing to the state of dreamless sleep. He asks whether during dreamless sleep there is a conscious awareness of individuality. Dr. Hand acknowledges the possibility, but is uncertain about his actual experience. Maharshi, in response, presses him to reflect on whether individuality could truly persist in deep sleep. To this, Dr. Hand brings up the subjective nature of interpretation, seeking Maharshi's perspective. Ramana, however, makes it clear that he won't dictate any interpretation for someone else's experience, emphasizing the personal nature of experience. Dr. Han appreciates this approach and tells Maharshi that. Maharshi then asks whether one is anxious about losing individuality in the same way as preparing a bed for sleep. Where is there any individuality in deep sleep? Shifting the focus to Buddha's concept of nirvana, Dr. Han asks about its nature. Maharshi succinctly states that Buddha's nirvana involves the loss of individuality. Expressing dread at this prospect, Dr. Han questions whether human consciousness can exist in nirvana, again showing his concern about loss. Maharshi asks him to consider whether two selves could coexist in such a scenario, one to know and one to be known, asking for reflection on Dr. Han's actual experiences during sleep. Ramana does not say it this way, but the only thing you could lose is something that is not truly who you are. What you are, who you are, is always. This dialogue revolves around the fear of losing individuality, exploring it through the lens of consciousness, dreamless sleep, and Buddha's nirvana. Maharshi guides Dr. Han towards self-inquiry, encouraging him to reflect deeply on his experiences and interpretations. Now, this interchange exemplifies Maharshi's teaching style, which invites you to explore and to understand your own consciousness and your own experience. So inquire, know yourself, and be always free and at peace. And now we have from Nome a dialogue between our friend Jim Clarke and Nome.
As you've said many times, and you just said it with Scott, when one sees ignorance as ignorance, then it does continue to exist for one. So if I look at my experience in practicing to try to identify the ignorance truly as ignorance, it seems like many times I've had a deep experience of not being the body. One of the first ones that I recall that was very deep was when we were taking pradakshina around Arunachala. And I remember we were walking in a group, and it became very clear I was not in a body. There was this body walking, there was the sensory input of that, but that was not I. And then I remember looking over and seeing others in the group, and it was like, wait a minute, those bodies don't mark off beings. And the experience was that one undivided essential existence. So my question is that it seemed in that the ignorance of misidentifying with the body was clearly not so. And that should have been the end of it. But it was not the end of it. Now, the degree of misidentifications with the body since then is certainly less so. But I'm trying to figure out, what is it that I'm missing? Is that the self-knowledge component in that experience that I'm not fully understanding? What is it about the way I'm seeing that I don't see it fully and completely, deeply and thoroughly, and finally, I'm not the body? Even though it seems like there have been times when that was clearly my experience.
What is the nature of the one who says, my experience, I knew I was not the body, but I mistake myself for the body again? This and other ideas are for someone. What is his nature?
What is the nature of that one? It seems that one is separate from the one undivided essential existence.
What marks off a separation?
It seems to start with the idea just of being separate without any form. But just the idea of some division, some particularized something. And
find out what that something is.
Right.
The form attributed to that something is the body, gross or subtle. To know that all the universes revolve around and in the one absolute undivided essential existence, Shiva, is Pradakshina.
I see now where I'm, at least I think I do. And you pointed it to me last week. And that is not finding out who that one is made out of that appears to be the second one that I claim as myself. Because last week I said something and you said, well, look at that one. What's he made out of? And that's
even if you think initially he's individualized, find out what his existence or his nature is. Only one will be found.
I was going to say, it's either not there or it's just one. It's not...
Find it out with certainty.
I was going to ask, how do I do that? But it's an obvious. You have to find it out. It's not outside of my grasp to figure that out. And if it appears so, who is the one who's got that going on? Find out his nature again.
If the illusion of individuality superimposed on the non-dual reality is to dissolve, certainly everything that's based on that individuality, all kinds of thinking, must dissolve as well.
Yeah, there isn't a single thought that I've ever had or could even imagine that it isn't based on that individual. They don't seem to happen for my existence. It's not going on there.
Examine every definition, every view or viewpoint that incorporates the ego or individuality as part of that definition. Examine every definition, every viewpoint, opinion, idea, etc., that incorporates the I am the body misconception within it.
If I look at every opinion, every viewpoint, every thought, it always has that I am the body. Without that, I can't maintain those concepts. Or at least I say that. I don't know if that I really know that. I mean, it seems to be, that certainly is the case, because I can see every time there's a viewpoint, it's from a body position. There's something there, and there's here.
If you understand them much, then follow through. Disidentify, free yourself, and abandon the definition, the viewpoint, the pattern of thinking, etc. Abandon it in the knowledge that it is not true, and that it is not yourself that it's based on.
The abandoning it in the knowledge that that's not who I am. I don't know that I...
That's seeing ignorance as ignorance.
Wow.
To retain a pattern of thinking based on ignorant definition, and to that add the idea, I know that this is ignorance, but I continue with it.
That's ignorance.
That's not really what's being indicated.
That's ignorance upon ignorance upon ignorance.
When we have knowledge, ignorance becomes impossible. So when the false root definitions are destroyed, the thinking that was consequent to them or upon them ceases. It becomes quite impossible.
Is it impossible, like, I know I'm not a water buffalo, and it's impossible, no matter how I think, to become a water buffalo? I mean, that's kind of a goofy example, but is it like that in a sense?
Yes, only in this case the thinking is the water buffalo.
Thinking is the water. Whoa. The thinking, I kind of get that, but not fully. So the thinking that I'm the body is the same kind of thinking that I'm a water buffalo. That's pretty absurd.
There has to come a time when you for yourself see that the ignorant concepts are totally absurd. You will then not conjure them up, nor will you adhere to those that were previously conjured.
All right. And excuse me, I went the wrong way again. Now we'll take a few minutes and inquire. Notice that you exist. You exist, and you know that you exist. Now look within yourself, investigate, and inquire. What does Ramana mean by there is nothing external in consciousness? Reflect on Dr. Hand's fear of losing individuality. Do I share this fear? What could be the root of this fear? Do you have a sense of individuality during deep sleep? Are there two selves, one to know the other? Who am I? What is the nature of my existence? What actually exists? All right. And we'll close with a chant. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Comments, discussion?
Becomes clear that the mind turned within is peace and the mind turned out is a rascal.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I would say the mind that believes in itself is the rascal.
Yeah.
That was a nice, since we talked yesterday a little bit about how hard it is to disidentify from the body.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. And
I know.
Ramana says that's the biggest misidentification that we carry.
Yeah, because like the example with the water buffalo, I can see that because I don't feel the water buffalo's indigestion or his aches and pains or anything like
Uh-huh,
that.
uh-huh. Certainly
So
you have a more interior view of this body.
yeah, And yet it's so obvious that the body is impermanent
Hmm.
and it can't possibly be what you are. Yeah.
It's interesting, I think, also that, we've heard of people talking about, getting afraid in deep meditation.
Mhm.
And, uh, that it was brought up to Ramana, and, he's still trying to get Dr. Han to look at what is always there and identify with that instead of this passing fancy. And, Dr. Han was really this idea of losing his individuality was really frightening. Who am I if I lose all of these ideas about myself?
I remember when I had just gotten back from India and I was really doing deep meditations, and then I would go so deeply that I was I would get panicked and I'd want to say,
Okay.
whoa, hey, whoa, I didn't mean that.
Uh-huh.
I didn't
Uh-huh.
sign up for that.
Uh-huh. So you've had that experience of,
Yeah, where you
uh-huh.
feel like either you're falling into an abyss or something, but it is the annihilation of the self, and you're like, no, not today. Practice some more. Ah, dear. Well,
And again, this came up in the talk with Ramana, and you experienced it yourself. And while we were in the satsangs that we held at our place, that is something that we also heard from others.
hmm yeah, it's pretty common, I think.
So there's a lot of attachment going on
Yeah,
to this person I think I am.
yes, there is. And the ego is never going to let go of it. So,
Uh-huh. Well, that's why Nome says the trick is understanding that the ego never existed to begin with.
yeah.
And so, how can something that doesn't exist, that was just made up, run our life? That's a good question.
Yeah. But it
See,
seems like you can't think your way out of any of this.
No.
no, it seems to me that all we could do is investigate ourselves, do Atma Vichara to strengthen the Sat Vasana and
Mm-hmm.
weaken the Visaya Vasanas.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we can do. Then the rest is just, it's grace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it has to be.
But it still seems like we can kind of help open the door to grace.
Yeah, you can be available.
Mm-hmm.
Turn within.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm.
Anyway, it's wonderful that they had recorded these talks with Ramana, because there is so much more in these talks than there is in these few little books that he wrote. And one of the things I hear in these talks is it seems like some of these questions are very much like the questions that we heard Nome being asked at Sat. The questions are the same. We're all trying to figure this out and hopefully even get past figuring it out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what we do when we're rookies. Some of
Yeah.
us, like me, have been a rookie for a long time.
Yeah. Such a subtle, beautiful teaching.
Yes,
You know, it's the mind turned out is ego, the mind turned in is the self.
yes, yes,
And the ego doesn't exist. So all there is the self.
yes.
Evelyn, I wish I was going to Arunachala with you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we all do.
I
That's
hope you
right.
I hope you get back there, and I hope you don't have to wait 25 years like I have had to wait.
I also thought the dialogue was kind of amusing with Jim talking about kind of losing identification with his body as he was doing Pradakshina around Arunachala. That was probably on the inner path.
Yeah, I was wondering if they went on if that group went on
No.
the outer path, maybe
No,
after
I
we
don't think
left.
so. I don't think
I mean,
so.
we missed a week of what they did, so maybe they did. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I think he has said that before about that experience, and it was on the inner path when he talked about it before.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
How could you not?
Anyway, good to be with you and
Yeah.
to share this wonderful teaching.
Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you all.
Namaste.
Bye.